All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully you're doing well. Congratulations. This is officially the last lecture of this semester, or year, I could even say, but that's kind of a joke because we'll start them back up when you guys get back from your break. But this is the last one. And I can't underemphasize, I think I say this every single time, where they're all super important, right? This one does have two really big concepts that will pop up on your exam. At least I'm pretty sure. Yes, it is. But kind of talking about population pyramids, understanding them, make sure you do that. And then also when we talk about the stage models and how humans go from different stages of population growth. So those are kind of the two key points to take away from this lecture. Please make sure you understand them. And I can't stress this enough. I'm going to attach the video again by and Kyrgyzstan is so good. To be honest, they sum up things very nicely. And if for some reason it seems like I know they almost go by an AP format sometimes because they kind of hit the main points that the AP format. So watch my lecture video, watch their video, and I think you'll have a good understanding of both these concepts. Okay. All right. First off, population pyramids are really what we're going to discuss today, and really looking at them, what do you think they are? They're really just telling us what the population dynamics are in a given country or location. Often, most of the time, they go by country, but I've seen them in city format as well. So really, they just talk about age and how much of the population is given within that age. That's really what it's showing you, right? So just keep that in mind when we're kind of going through that. All right. Now there's three different types, or they fit usually. Obviously, all population pyramids, depending on the country, are much different, but usually they fit within one of three categories. First off, we have expansive, which is this very first one down here. This depicts populations that have a large percentage of people in younger age groups. Populations with this shape usually have high fertility rates with lower life expectancies. Many third world countries have expansive population pyramids. So kind of looking at that, guys, you will have a whole kind of less assignment on this, but do know, looking at this, right, as you go up is the older the person gets. So this is probably your 0 to 4 year olds. So in Niger, there's 0 to 4 year olds. Obviously, there's a huge population of male and female that are 0 to 4 years old. That means they're having a lot of babies. And then when we see this nice kind of clean cut like this, it means their old people are dying at a pretty, throughout your life, you have you're steadily dying at an increased risk. So this tends to be countries that have little fertility, or low birth control, that people are just having many babies, and then they're also dying very quickly as well. That's this first one. Constrictive is on this far right one down here, are named so because they are constricted at the bottom, right? How it goes in here. There's a lower percentage of younger people, and constrictive population pyramids show declining birth rates since each succeeding age group is getting smaller and smaller, right? We have maybe a baby boomer situation here where maybe these are your 40, 50-year-olds, but then those 40 and 50-year-olds just had less and less children. So the population overall is going down over time, right? That would be this one. And that's kind of what we see here. And, a lot of people, as we can see, compared to Singapore versus Niger, obviously, you have a much larger percentage of population here. It either means they have better health services, or there's just a larger population that they had at that time. So usually this kind of means a good system, or it's trying to stabilize itself. And then the last one is the stationary or stabilized one. Those are the ones that show a somewhat equal proportion of the population in each age group. There's not a decrease or an increase in population. It is stable. This is kind of what you're looking for as a country. You don't want less children, because then you end up in a situation like this, which is kind of also like or Japan, right? They just have not very many young people. You don't want that, right? Because you want people to kind of help out your old people. And then you kind of want something like this, which is Sweden, because you have enough old people and enough young people to kind of take care of them and fill their roles as they go on. So kind of keep that in mind with these three terms. Now, how to read it. Obviously, I kind of did this already, but I don't know why it's doing that. It's been doing that a lot lately. But bumps in the sides, you can read a lot from a population pyramid. You can just tell by looking at it, graphically what's going on here. Obviously, if we're looking at Bahrain, look at this. Look at on the male side. This is the male side. There's this huge peak, right? What does that mean? And it shows irregularities, and what we should kind of look at, right? This indicates demographic anomalies. Wow. But in the 30 to 50 age group in the population pyramid at the right represents the baby boom, right? We have this huge baby boom here, but then the baby booms might slow down. This bump will travel upward as the baby boomers age. So there is going to be a higher amount of old people as we go along. Or looking at this one, Bahrain, bumps in the sides, irregularities, in the sides indicate a demographic anomaly. The large number of working age men in the pyramid of the left indicates a migrant workforce. So, right, maybe Bahrain's natural population is very stable, but we see all these extra men maybe because they invited them into work, in construction or something along those lines. You might see, and you actually do a little bit of this in China's population pyramid, where you actually see an increase more men than women. Maybe you can't, at least through number wise, you can see more men versus women. So that just shows you that something happened there, right? And that was China's one-child policy. But obviously it kind of goes along this, right? We have males on this side, females on this side, and then as you go up is the age, right? So this represents 80 to 84-year-olds. There's this many, right? Actually, let's look at this one. But if you look on the population in millions, so that means 0 to 4-year-olds, which we're reading here, on males, we have probably about 6.8, 6.9 million babies that are that age, right? Looking at females, we probably have a little bit less, 6.8 million babies, right? Because it's in millions. So do know it kind of gives you the amount of individuals that fit into those categories. And like I said, we can see just even going by city in the United States, how drastically different they can be, right? Miami Beach is kind of stabilized. Washington, D.C. has just not very good, a whole lot of old people, a big, young professional type thing going on there because we have a lot of people going there for just jobs and it's probably too expensive and then they leave. I lived in Washington, D.C., so I can see that. Or even more so for Sandy, Utah, right? Not all the old people are gone or they're dead, but my guess is in the United States, they probably just don't live in Utah, or there's just a huge increase in, or it was very unpopulated, and all of a sudden in the 40 or 50-year-olds came along and they decided to settle in Sandy, Utah. So it can tell a lot, right? And you will do kind of a worksheet with this, but just another one to give you an example, right? But like I said, it just tells you the amount of individuals in a given area. So please know that, right? And just, knowing this, looking at these population models compared to, that's China right there. But looking at, different US ones as well. Sorry, going back and forth. But here's the actual, if we look at it in different format of graph, how, birth rates, how many births were given. And we could see the baby boomers, which is that middle section. There was a lot of births after World War II. Tons of babies being born, right? And then it kind of, now the United States population is kind of steadying out or kind of going down as well. Can we have a birth dearth, right? That really means, we've been talking about many European countries as well as a lot of, countries in Asia, just like Thailand and Japan. Their negative growth rates. There are concerns in all these countries about a lack of young people to be soldiers, workers, taxpayers, right? Just think about like Bangkok. Let's say now there's roughly, give or take 12 to 15 million in Bangkok alone. What happens if all of a sudden in 30 years there's 8 million? Well, what's going to happen to all that infrastructure? What's going to happen to all those businesses that built up these high-rise, condo buildings? What's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to be, you're going to have a lot of economic problems. You're going to have a lot of infrastructure problems. You're not going to have a whole lot of people, in the medical field to help out the old people when they're old. So there is, often we think of, less people, maybe that's a good thing. Not necessarily. You want that nice kind of calm, either want your population to slowly go down or just to stabilize. And one reason that birth rates may have dropped in developed countries is that toxins, and this is another thing that has been brought up, but toxins and endocrine disruptors that are pollutants interfere with sperm production. Sperm numbers and quality have fallen by half in the last 50 years. This is huge in the United States and many different countries where men just cannot have more babies. They're just not as viable as normal just due to pollutants. All right. Key number 2 to definitely know is the demographic transition models. It is super important to understand each of these 4. And like I said, I'm going to speak on them, but Kyrgyzstan does a great job explaining these. Not that they're taking my job. It's just like, I watched one, sorry, not to go on a rant, but I just watched one on meat and carbon footprint. And they just, to be honest, I think they're listening to my lectures kind of thing. But definitely watch it because they can do these nice graphics that I currently cannot. But to understand this, we have 4 stages of what a country goes through developing and then how that results in its population. Okay, so stage 1 is a pre-modern society, or very LDC, or very least developed country. So these are the poor of the poor kind of countries. But poor conditions keep death rates high, right? So obviously people are dying a lot. They don't get to survive very long. Bad healthcare, right? So people are dying, and birth rates are very high as well. Why? Because you're having these huge families. You're having 10 to 12, kids, because you kind of expect, well, they're going to die. You don't. A lot of them won't survive. So this is stage 1: low education, low literacy. Very little birth control and career opportunities for women, so they just have many large families. So this is kind of stage 1, where you're having tons and tons of babies, and a lot of you are dying at the same time, kind of thing. So lots of deaths, lots of babies. Stage 2, now we have a little bit of economic development. Brings better standard of living, thus death rates fall, but birth rates stay constant or even rise. So really what you have going on here is you still kind of have the mindset where you're still having tons of babies, right? You're still having babies because, maybe you're used to the stage 1 where you still feel like you need these big families. But death rates now somehow maybe your country has adapted, has much more standards of healthcare, so a lot of people are living. This is when you have a huge boom in population, right? Because in the stage 1, you have a lot of people being born, but a lot of them were dying. But now you have a lot of people being born still, but very little dying. So you have this huge growth in population. Then we have stage 3, which is mature industrial economies. Birth rates then begin to fall as people see that most of their children survive, right? And you just have so many people that you maybe don't want big families, or you need to work harder, economically. Kids cost a lot of money, so birth rates go down, and once again, and then also death rates are still low, right? So this tends to be the stage where you start seeing this level off period, where this is kind of like what Thailand is in right now, or the United States, where it's kind of leveling off, and it's kind of stabilizing. And then we have stage 4, which is very developed countries. Transition is complete, and both death rates and birth rates are low, and populations are in equilibrium. And this is kind of going to stage 4, where it's kind of going down a bit, right? So you see kind of the full stabilization here, or even going down. Due to kind of confirm, but stage 3, guys, you still have a population growth because there's just still so many people from stage 2 that were there, that stage 3 still has an increase, but it's slowing. And then stage 4 is when it actually stabilizes, okay? To just kind of know that. Now, this is where that video is, so please watch my human population video by Kyrgyzstan. Once again, they did a great job with this. Here's what I just said in a graphic form, right? Stage 1, which is, a lot of babies being born, but a lot of deaths. So the deaths are red, the births are blue. So you have a lot of babies being born up in the 40s here, right? But also a lot of deaths. So it's kind of keeping your population stable here. It really doesn't increase here because you have the high deaths, high births. Well, then you still have high births here, but then you have death rates dramatically dropping. Well, what's going to happen in your population? It's going to start going up, right? And then it gets to stage 3, where your birth rates start coming down slowly, and so it starts to you start seeing this kind of curve that goes on, right? It starts to stabilize. And then in stage 4, we have low birth rates, low death rates, so then it stabilizes, or in some cases are starting to go down. So that's just that in graphic form. So kind of, key to know this, right? And that's really the two main things I want you guys to know is your population pyramids, which we'll work on next week, but also those stages. And I think that video will really help you out as well to understand these things. Do know them because they will pop up on the exam. Okay. And just a couple things just to talk about and end here. Like I said, didn't make this too difficult, but it is an important one. Other demographers believe that in order for the demographic transition model to work, the resources must be distributed more equitably, right? They believe that the world has enough natural resources, but inequality or inequitable, inequitable social and economic systems cause maldistribution. Many countries, when they were colonial powers, extracted the wealth from these countries that were their colonies, and some of the world's poorest countries had rich resources and adequate food supplies before they were impoverished by colonialism. What I'm really getting to there is, that goes back to the whole discussion on Africa. We're seeing huge amounts of high population there. Well, who's to blame, right? I'm not going to let you make the decision for yourself, but there has been, in the past centuries, many of the European countries, and now kind of talking about China, right, is going in there, taking a lot of these natural resources out and then leaving very little, right? That can be argued. So is it really, Africa's fault, or is it the world has pretty much set them up for failure in a way, right? So that's just kind of get you thinking about that, because we will discuss that more later. And we should consider the rights of other species. Perhaps rather than asking what is the maximum number of people that the earth can hold, we should instead start asking what is the optimum number of people at which we can provide a fair and decent life for all humans while causing a minimum impact on other species. This is just kind of going to, what do we decide is the right population, right? What should be our capital limit? Should we just keep growing exponentially, or should we try to bring it down, right? And that's just getting you to think about those things as well. All right, see you, everybody. Nice, quick, easy. Won't hold you too much, but please understand those terms, and that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, bye-bye.